Hey everybody, I'm Robert Donovan. Welcome to this episode of Not Trekonomics. You know, saving and paying off debt require the same skill. It's called delayed gratification. The ability to forego reward today to acquire bigger rewards or better rewards later. Saving money builds all the mental skills to apply delayed gratification, which makes it a good way to practice the mental mindset. In this episode, I'm going to show you an easy way to get started doing that and turn your debt payments into savings as you pay your debts off along the way. All right, folks, in this episode, we're really trying to accomplish two tasks. One, consciously form or strengthen the habit of saving. And two, get good at saving more. You want to do them in that order, by the way. Most people who have trouble forming good habits or forming new habits consciously try to do both at the same time, and that's their undoing. It's like trying to look at it. It's like trying to write editing, and it's trying to be creative and edit at the same time when you're writing. That's called writer's block. Well, good habit block is trying to form the habit while you're trying to get good at whatever it is you're doing. Form the habit first, then worry about performance. Consciously forming a habit may seem weird to you because we don't usually form habits on purpose. For this example, we're going to use savings, but the concepts that we're going to be working with here, they work for any new habit you want to start. The trick is starting small and concentrating on continuous small improvements. Since the important thing is to get into the habit of saving first, don't worry how much money you're actually socking away at first. If you have to start by only saving a couple bucks per month, that's fine. Consistency is the important thing we're trying to build just starting out. Once the habit has set in, then we'll worry about saving more money. This prevents not having much money becoming a reason not to save, and it provides an automatic way to deal with the inevitable real-world setbacks, all the while reinforcing the mental discipline of delayed gratification, which makes it a very convenient way to do this. So here are the 3 steps that I used in my personal savings program to come up with, that I use now to save money every month. First thing, I use an automatic savings plan and I used it initially when I was in debt to try and generate an initial extra monthly payment to pay off my debts. Unfortunately, my income kept dropping, so it was never enough, but it still worked for the level, whatever level of income I had, and it works even at low incomes like the one I'm making now. Now, nice thing about automatic savings plans is they require very little effort to get started and maintain, and you can do this through your employer or your bank. Depends a little bit on how much money you're making. For employers, this usually takes the form of something like a Roth IRA, an IRA, a 401k, or an employee stock ownership plan. If your employer doesn't offer such a plan or requires too high a minimum investment, or you need the money to pay off debt, which is a common problem for the sub 25 to 30,000 per year debt-strapped target audience of this particular show, virtually all banks have automatic savings plans that allow you to use much lower amounts. And they allow periodic transfers from checking to savings, in either as every time you use your ATM card or as periodic monthly transfers from checking to savings. My bank has one for automatically transferring an amount I determine to savings every time I use my ATM card. I have it set at $2 per ATM transaction. That's my kind of default setting unless I'm saving for something specific. All right. I believe Wells Fargo has a plan called Way to Save that does the same thing, although I don't know the details of that because I don't bank there. Bank of America offers a program called Keep the Change, which transfers a few cents each ATM transaction to your account. My understanding is it works like this. If you spend $3.50 on your ATM card, then B of A will transfer 50 cents from checking to savings as a result of doing that transaction. So if you use your ATM a few times a day, a couple of bucks a day is what you're saving. And if your bank doesn't offer something like that, and you don't want to switch banks, you can simply set up, it's very easy online to set up a periodic transfer from checking to savings. This achieves the same effect. Whichever way you do it, start with the smallest amount the bank allows. $1 per day is 30 bucks a month, so it doesn't need to be a lot. Don't think you've got to come up with tons of money here. If you're looking at, well, how big a monthly transfer, because my bank doesn't offer the fancy ATM thing that Donovan here is talking about. Well, 30 bucks, divide by 30, buck a day, 31 days a month, it's less than $1 a day. Doesn't need to be a lot. And 30 bucks a month is enough of an extra payment to make a difference in your debts. So the key, though, is make it small enough you don't notice it, but large enough to build up over the month to something you can use on paying off your debts efficiently. Don't worry if that seems a little low to you, because we will be increasing it as you pay your debts off. We're coming up. Now, the more you can save, the faster you will hit post-satiety. I look at 25% of income per month as a good starting goal. I have not saved that little since I declared bankruptcy, by the way. But do not fall into the, oh, I saved 10%, I'm okay mentality. You're not. That's for people who want to retire at 65 or 70. We, the post-satiety crowd, want to have enough money where we could, if we wanted to, retire much younger. And the way you do that is by saving more, not by saving a little and then going out and living a great life and then wondering why you don't have much to retire on, because you spent it all. Second step, once you got your automatic savings plan set up, turn debt payments into automatic savings as you pay your debts off. And this is really easy to do. Assuming $1 a day in automatic savings, you can you can pay 30 bucks extra in principal to pay off your debts. And then you can also use this later to fund monthly investment plans, which is kind of the idea. But again, it doesn't have to be a lot. But you put that toward whichever debt reduction strategy we covered that you choose from the ones we covered in the Deal Your Debts a Death Blow episode. Link to the playlist for that below. And as you pay off your loans, remember I told you in the debt reduction strategies, as you pay off the loan, put that payment toward the next loan you pay off. Well, we're going to do that, but we're going to increase the amount of the savings plan that's going into the savings plan by that debt payment amount first, and then do it that way, because what that does is while you're still used to not having it, you're now putting that money that went to paying off debt into savings, and you're still going to use it to pay off your other debts, but by the time you get done paying off your other debts, you've turned all those former debt payments into monthly savings, and that way you have all that money going to savings, building a capital base to invest. And as a reward, if you get to the point, let's say, where you paid off all your debts, but your mortgage, that one can take a few years to pay off. But let's say you do this for a couple of years, you get all your credit card debts and all your other small debts paid off. All you got left is the mortgage. Give yourself a little reward. That's going to be a pretty big amount. It'll probably surprise you how big it is. It did me when we looked at this the first time, my sister and I. Take 20% of that as your reward and then leave the rest in going to principal on your mortgage. That way you've got a little extra money to play with. You don't feel like you're depriving yourself so much. You've given yourself a little reward. You've accomplished something. It's enough where you'll feel it, but not so much that you'll derail your savings plan. So you leave the 80% in and call that your reward for getting debt-free, and do it again when you pay your mortgage off. And again, any extra money you get, go to pay that mortgage off. It will definitely help. But we're going to use this money, the other debts, we're going to use that for savings. The mortgage debt you can kind of do separately, but do put the bulk of it toward getting the mortgage paid off. Debt-free is a good way to be. Then once you get your monthly savings plan, your automatic monthly savings plan, once you get used to doing that and it becomes second nature, well, then there's a little trick I developed called the daily spending limit game. Automatic savings gets you the wherewithal to get out of debt quickly, but another useful habit is to proactively manage your daily spending. And there's 3 or 4 steps, 4 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps I use to that. First, create a must-spend list as we covered in the Planning for Post-Satiety video. Right? Links are all, there's a link to the playlist that has all this below. I recommend if this is the first video you're watching, definitely recommend you watch the rest of the playlist from the first episode on. All right? So once you've got your must-spend list, subtract all your must-spend items for the pay period, and here it's going to vary depending on how much money you have. If you subtract all your must-spend items from your pay and you've got a couple $100 left over, then you can use that. If you subtract all your must-spends and you've got, not very much, like 80, under $100, let's say, then what I would do is subtract all your must-spend items from the pay period except food, and do with food what I recommend doing with whatever's left over, if you can afford to get all of it out and still have a couple $100 left over. You take what's left over, or in this case the amount for food if you're really, really strapped, and you divide that by the number of days until your next payday. This is your daily spending limit either overall or on food. Food is a good choice if you're really strapped because you have a lot of flexibility on how much you spend on it. Payments you can't vary won't work for this, so I'd go with food. Your goal is to never hit that limit after you do the division. So I get paid every 14 days, and let's say if I had $140 left over, then I could spend $10 a day outside of all my other bills. And the idea is you never hit that limit, even if it's only a few cents less. Now, what I normally did, and still do with this, is I divide my whole paycheck now because I know how much I spend and I know I can manage it, but don't do that right off the bat. Start with something a little smaller. It's a little smaller goal. Let's say you divided by, your 200, let's say you had $280 left and you divide by 14. And yes, I'm doing this to make the math easy because I'm doing it in my head. But you divide by 14, so that gives you $20 per day. For the first couple of days, I would work mightily to spend less than $20. In fact, spend as little money as possible. And each day I'd recalculate the daily spending limit based on what's left. So that after like 2 or 3 days, I had more than $20 to spend each day, and then I could get a little looser. And I found that even on the days, if you get good at this and you start doing this regularly, even on the days you go over, you tend to find you're going over far, far less than you would go over if you weren't tracking it at all. It certainly worked that way for me. So any money you have left over on the first day of the next pay period, so you go through, you've underspent every day, you got some money left over, yay, good job, then that's your reward. You can use it as mad money, you can add it to your extra debt payments to pay your debts off a little faster, or you can let it ride and just kind of store it as an emergency fund, which I recommend, get a few $100s. The average person in the United States, according to a recent Federal Reserve survey, can't get $400 in an emergency without borrowing from friends. So you get it up to $400. Then you won't be in then you can tell that Federal Reserve, to just, do one of these. Anyway, you start small, as usual, by trying to undershoot the limit for maybe 1 or 2 days if you're just starting doing this and you're kind of new to it. And then gradually increase that until you're doing it for the whole pay period. Remember, concentrate on forming the habit first, as always, and then getting better at it. Now, once you get good at this and you're doing it consistently, you can then just try dividing the amount of your entire paycheck on payday by the number of days until next payday, and then try to keep spending under that. This is much harder because some of your bills are going to necessarily overshoot that daily limit, but you need to learn to keep focused in spite of those kinds of setbacks and manage your spending anyway in response. So if you get a bill that's over that daily limit, well, guess what? The next couple of days, what do you have to do? You got to cut back and get that thing back up to where it was when you had on payday. If you find this is too hard the first time you try it, go back to either the food only or the subtract all your must spends first approach and do that for a couple more months and then try this again. So that's how I save money. I save 48% of my money doing that. That's my secret. Don't know if it'll work for everybody as well, but it definitely works for me. And your mileage may vary, but the key is get started and do it consistently. It will not hurt. It will make you will see your savings go up. You will see your debts coming down, so you're coming down steadily. That is a great feeling. And you will feel like you are not out of control with your finances anymore. It's also the reason I look at the small steps. Let's talk about those principles for a minute. The principles we've been applying here. First, know what is important to you. That's how you decide if a reward is bigger or better. That's kind of the key to the whole delayed gratification thing, isn't it? Now, I talked in the Planning for Post-satiety video in the What Can You Be Happy Without video about using your excess stuff to determine what's important to you in an earlier video. A lot of personal finance sites recommend basically just listing and ranking what's important to you. If you want to try that and you're having some trouble coming up with stuff that's important to you, Google search comprehensive list of personal values, and that'll give you some ideas to get started. Come up with 5 or 10 really important things, rank them in order, and you can tweak it later, but you need a concrete place to start. The example here, I'm assuming savings would have been one of the 10 things on that list. Okay? Once you have your list, set goals. What you want to do when you know what's important to you is list the things that need to happen to make the important things that you want to happen in reality. In this case, we needed a savings plan, we needed to get an extra principal payment, and we needed to manage the daily spending. Voila, we have goals. The next step is to make a plan to achieve those goals. So I kind of came into this video at step 3 in this list here, but that's what I was doing. So the plan, what we came up with, is the one we just got done talking about. So see steps 1 through 3 above. And the fourth thing, start small, concentrate on making continuous little improvements that add up over time. People tend to get just deer in the headlights about this when they say, oh my God, I got to pay off all my debts. Yeah, that's bleak. That's daunting. That's a huge thing. But saving $1 a day, that you can hold in your hand. You can look at it. It's a tiny little goal. But if you do it every day, guess what? You get that big one taken care of too. Concentrating on getting those little small parts. Big projects are made of small pieces. You're concentrating on getting those right. It prevents the anxiety and doubt from overwhelming you at the beginning of a big project. And when the inevitable setbacks happen, it makes it easier to just pick up where you left off and keep moving forward because it's not a big setback. It's only a small step. Every project has periods when it is painfully, frustratingly, annoyingly slow. Focus on getting back on track, and the overall impact of that will be minimal. Useful sports motto here is never miss twice. Don't get into the habit of coming up with excuses not to do this stuff. If you miss a day or if you miss a step, make the priority to get that step done tomorrow. Right? It's as soon as you are able to do it. Something may have prevented you from doing it. As soon as it's over, say, I got to get this. And it's done. All right? That is how you avoid missing twice and how you stay on track. Last thing, reward yourself when you reach major milestones or achieve major goals. Little rewards let you mentally recharge, psych yourself up for new challenges, and appreciate that you've actually accomplished something along the way. And focus on the goals and benefits rather than how hard this particular moment is. Attaining post-satiety is a marathon, not a sprint. And as I said, it is not going to be a program for those who are at their best, only when the going is good or easy or convenient. Rewards give you something to strive for rather than merely something to endure. So the takeaways: delayed gratification is a learned skill, not something you are gifted with by a high IQ. Know your values, set goals, make a plan to achieve them. Start small, concentrate on forming new habits first, and then on continually getting better at whatever it is you're forming the habit of. If you fail or miss a day, focus on getting back on track as quickly as you can and try not to miss twice. Do not waste time indulging in feeling guilty or inadequate. Just get back on the game and move on. Building good saving habits is a great way to build the mindset of delayed gratification and get yourself in the habit of doing all of this. So that's it for this one. We're going to be switching topics here for a couple of episodes. We are going to look at the post-satiety legislative agenda, in which we look at how government could promote capital formation post-satiety and other things that would make post-satiety easier to get. The first episode looks at the idea that you want smaller government. You need to be willing to be able to govern yourself and how each individual can do that. In the second one, we're going to look at how applying the principles of empiricism, minimalism, simplicity, debt reduction, and all the stuff that we have covered so far could be used to create a federal budgeting system to get the federal budget into surplus and keep it there, and then pay off the national debt, end the income tax, and reduce and eliminate unfunded obligations without decades of austerity and hardship, as the EU seems to insist on wanting to do itself. After that, we will kick off the capital formation topic with human capital, an introduction to autotelic learning concepts. So that's all coming up. Thanks for watching. Love it if you'd comment, like, and subscribe. May the balance of your day be awesome, folks.